This is the program that shows you the side of police chase videos they didn't want you to see. Bungled arrests, kamikaze crooks and cop-based carnage of all kinds. Welcome to Cops Uncut, the real car crash TV. Coming up on Cops Uncut. This trucker picks up a police escort. This suspect gives the cops a piece of his mind.
I'll kick your goddamn ass.
And this lawbreaker loses his shirt and then his freedom.
Taking off again.
The cop car just appearing over the horizon now is being chased by a truck, which in turn is being chased by approximately 50 more police cruisers. Cop cars really are like London buses. You wait ages for one and then all at once a whole fleet of them turn up. Chris Christopherson here has got more smokies in his convoy than there are flies on his windscreen. But if nothing else, he's got a distinct weight advantage, so for the moment, he's not going to have to worry about being bumped off the road. If one of the lowly cruisers tried to mess with this truck cab colossus, it wouldn't be too difficult to predict the outcome. So, like some sort of freeway flying team, everybody drives along in formation. And no matter how many squad cars there are hovering around, nobody really knows what to do next. As well as flashing his lights and sounding his siren, the officer at the front of this cavalcade ought to be displaying a sign saying, "Caution, wide load." Even when the joyriding juggernaut starts veering onto the wrong side of the road, no one's going to try to stop him. And with those jumbo tyres throwing clouds of spray and dirt into the air, he's got their windscreen wipers working overtime. A little further up the road, our trucker decides to shoot a red light. And with the sort of steering you normally see from professional stuntmen, everyone gets through miraculously unscathed. But we've got that rarest of creatures on our hands here, a truck driver with a conscience. He's feeling so guilty about shooting through the intersection that he decides to pull over and give himself up. And with such a heavy police presence, when the guilty man finally steps from his cab, there are enough officers on hand to overpower an elephant. In fact, you'd think there was a football at the bottom of the scrum they're all trying to get hold of. This driver wanted his cop car convoy to keep on trucking. But having dealt out everything he could, there were no cards left to play. So when the game drew to a close, he was just bottom of the pile. Still to come in part one. This suspect has got an axe to grind with the law.
I'll kick your goddamn ass.
And this prat shows off his six-pack.
Get back in the vehicle now! Get back in the vehicle!
As a cop, you'll often encounter suspects who have got ants in their pants, and no matter how many times you try to tell them, they simply won't keep still.
Hey there, sir. Officer Hitchcock with Carrollton Police Department. Yeah. The reason I stopped you is not wearing your seatbelt. And I started because you were out of the vehicle.
Having pulled over Mr. Dowder, Officer Hitchcock is here to give us a textbook tutorial in tolerance. First up, always call your suspect sir and assure them that their safety is paramount.
Sir, sit down in the vehicle now, okay? You can get your driver's license out in the vehicle. I'm doing this for your safety and mine, okay?
Remember to ask for ID so you know exactly who it is you're dealing with.
Yes, sir.
Yell at me no goddamn more. Do you understand?
Sir, I'm going to do what I have to do on this traffic stop, okay?
If your suspect tries to boss you around, don't be afraid to call in reinforcements.
When I stopped, I took my license out, and he was screaming at the top of his voice for me to get back in the car. I don't do that with no goddamn body.
All right, well, can you please?
If they start getting on their high horse, just nod politely.
Okay, all right.
But next time, if you ever stop me again, I don't wear a seatbelt. I don't believe in seatbelts. I don't believe in being forced by the government to make me do anything, including wearing a seatbelt. I do not wear them.
Okay.
They may try to convince you of a little-known amendment in the Constitution which reserves the right of the individual not to have to bother with wearing a seatbelt.
Okay, I'm going to explain everything to you, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to write you a citation for no seatbelt. Okay, just listen. All right? Signing this does not mean you're guilty.
I'm not signing it.
Okay?
If you're going to take me to jail, I'm not signing your damn shit.
Well, just let me just explain something to you.
But stick to your guns, no matter how much they try to exercise their right to free speech.
No, you yelled at me like I was a damn
listen,
child.
that was back then, okay? Just listen, I'm talking to you straight up right now, okay?
Being an expert in the field of handling provocation, Hitchcock is displaying the patience of a saint and more diplomacy than the UN.
I would ask you if you would you can drive your vehicle up to the police department and post a cash bond. But if you sign it now, you can go on your way and we won't have to have contact with each other anymore. Okay, are you gonna sign it then? Policeman?
This rebel without a seatbelt has got a serious problem with authority figures. But as a police officer, sometimes you practically have to get on your knees and grovel before they'll give in.
Listen, if you sign this, you can go on your way and show up to court. Okay. And you can show up to court and you can tell them what you told me, okay?
But don't make the mistake of trying to have the last word.
Okay?
Let me tell you something. If you ever stop me again and you yell at me like you yelled at me, I'll kick your goddamn ass.
Finally, and if all else fails, simply threaten your suspect with arrest.
You need to get back in the vehicle because you're digging yourself a hole right now. You start threatening me, you need to leave. Well, no, you need to leave. You need to leave because you're digging yourself a hole. Because those kind of words right there, you're getting on the verge of going to jail for that, okay, for threat.
So, if you meet a suspect who's in search of life, liberty, and the pursuit of a damn good argument...
Please, sir, please, drive carefully.
Remember that you'll need a lot of patience to get your man. Class dismissed.
Go get him.
Like so many others before him, the driver of this car had second thoughts once the police had pulled him over. All of a sudden, the thought of a cop leaning through his window gave him the heebie-jeebies. So he drove off, turning a traffic stop into a car chase. In this case, perhaps it's because his license is suspended and his car registration has expired. And why stop at that when you can have 3 misdemeanors for the price of 2? Time to add speeding to the list as he cranks it up to 70 in a 30. Now he's on a roll. What other crimes do you think this crook can conjure up? Well, if he stops the car, jumps out, does a little dance move and then runs away, how about resisting arrest? As our brave Bobby sprints after him, though, there's still hope for the people of Hobbs, New Mexico, in the form of this guy. The passenger in the offending car. Didn't anyone ever tell you that it's rude to leave a door open? Some people just have no respect.
Taking off again.
Still to come in part 2. These cops call in to the in-car off license, and this suspect gets in a prang with a post.
Taking off again.
Salt Lake City, Utah, which, at the risk of stating the obvious, is famed for its Salt Lake. Perhaps even more renowned, though, are the number of Mormons living there, which may be why the residents need such big cars. After all, when you've got 7 wives to take to the shops, there's not much point investing in a Mini. Like the guy up ahead, you're more likely to be driving a minivan. Although judging by the speed he takes this corner, his families are all safely tucked up in bed. At nearly 2 in the morning and without another vehicle in sight, he's looking to use the city streets as a skid pan. Which is why, when they get the opportunity, the cops try and bring things to a swift conclusion. But this God-fearing gangster's driving skills are as strong as his religious beliefs, and it's not long before he's back on the path of righteousness. The cops must be thinking that it'll take a biblical miracle to end this chase, but eventually their perseverance pays off. They manage to get him boxed into the back streets, and with nowhere else to go, he decides to take a leap of faith. Perhaps this devout delinquent really does have God on his side, though, because his minivan is pulling some pretty nifty moves, even with no one at the wheel. This pious perpetrator was hoping for divine intervention as he led the police on a pilgrimage. But come next Sunday, he won't be in church. He'll just be in the doghouse with all 7 of his wives. Choose your wheels wisely. When you've just robbed an off-licence, the last thing you want to do is put the stolen goods on display for all to see. Although the driver closes it again as nonchalantly as possible, a faulty trunk has let the cat out of the bag, and the aptly named Officer Jin has seen all he needs to make an arrest. The suspect's car may have failed to conceal the evidence, but he's speedy enough to get away on foot. And after giving up the pursuit surprisingly early on, Officer Jin is left with second prize. And he's definitely not going to let this guy get away, as he tells him in no uncertain terms. Now, though, this unpredictable automobile is giving his colleagues exactly the opposite problem. And if the guy sitting on the floor knows anything, he's keeping it to himself. So, how many cops does it take to open a car boot? 1, 2, 3, 4 perhaps? 5, 6, 7 even. Yep, the combined brain power of a whole posse of patrolmen is having trouble finding a small plastic lever under the dash. And when they finally manage to pop that trunk, they're so happy you'd think they were about to pop open the stolen goods as well and have a party right there and then. As they divide the spoils, no one seems to be too bothered about the fact that one of the robbers is still on the loose. In fact, Officer Jin is only too keen to tell them how he failed to catch a thief.
I got him to the point. I said, turn around, put your hand behind your back. He took out. I took the truck off, he got away from me.
So if you're choosing a getaway vehicle, remember to make sure that it isn't open all hours. Otherwise, like these liquor store lawbreakers, you could find the cops helping themselves to your haul. Deputy Tate of the Bonnefay Police Department has already pulled over Mitchell Williams, the driver of the car up ahead. But Williams changed his mind about cooperating at the last minute, and before Tate could make an arrest, he jumped back into the driver's seat and sped off. And this runaway wrongdoer is about to make things much worse for himself by taking a swipe at one of Tate's colleagues. Instead of the cops pulling a pit maneuver, this time it's one of the crooks. But Williams should know that if you mess with the old Bill's bodywork, they're going to want to get their own back. Time to initiate a rolling roadblock. Although this isn't just to slow their suspect down, because these two cops have got an ulterior motive. As Officer French applies the brakes, Deputy Tate puts his foot down, and before he knows what's happening, Williams has become the filling in a police car panini. And these two don't just want to bring the chase to a satisfactory conclusion. They're also looking to give Williams a taste of his own medicine. There you go, let's see what your mechanic has got to say about that. At this point, the chase moves over into Geneva City, Alabama, and it looks like Deputy Tate might have to deal with things on his own. Williams decides that it's time to mix things up a bit and manages to execute such a sharp turn that Tate is left high and dry. Tate may now be a long way behind the action, but his colleagues are on the case, and that little rear-ender seems to have done the trick. When smoke starts to billow from his engine, there's nothing left to do but park up and hope that they're not going to do the same thing to his head that they did to his car. Still fuming about the damage to his rear wing, Officer French has driven all the way across a cornfield for some second helpings and applies a full frontal with his rhubars. After a bit of bump and grind, this suspect was on a one-way trip to the cop shop. His Merc, on the other hand, was on a one-way trip to the body shop. And we're not talking about cosmetics. It's the middle of a long, cold night, and Officer Keisel is on snow patrol. He comes across a vehicle parked at the side of a dimly lit suburban street and, feeling lonely, decides to pull over and say hello. Sadly for him, though, all the driver wants to do is kick up a few snowflakes and say goodbye. A couple of 100 yards down the road and he seems to have changed his mind. But this guy is just a cop tease, and before Keisel has even had a chance to put on his bobble hat, he's off again. And this time there'll be no more parallel parking as our late-night lawbreaker tries to put some distance between himself and his pursuer. Even with snow tyres, though, he's skating on thin ice, and in conditions like these, it's only too easy to slip up. Eventually, his appetite gets the better of him, and he pulls into a takeaway for a midnight snack. With a second cop now heading him off at the exit, instead of driving through the drive-thru, he smashes into a lamppost. Now the cops just want to get their man out of the car, but he's quite happy where he is, thank you very much. And as they begin to regret the fact that they didn't bring an ice pick and some crampons, he sits tight and turns the heating up. Eventually, though, Officer Keisel realizes the driver's door is open and drags him from the car to a very frosty reception indeed, where there's just as much danger of catching hypothermia as a baton to the back of the head. When this midnight runner got the munchies, he wound up doing the sort of pole dancing you're not gonna see on stage. So what have we learnt today on Cops Uncut? Never judge a truck by its cab. Remember to rehearse your moves before you find yourself on camera. And you don't even need a driver when you've got God at the wheel. Be careful out there.